everybody. It's Thursday. It's January 2023. Happy New Year. We're going to start the year with macaroni and cheese because what better way to start the new year? And we're going to make homemade mac and cheese. None of that box stuff. Nothing wrong with the box stuff, but this is a really fun recipe because you can do whatever you want with it. You can do whatever kind of cheese floats your boat. Usually you want something that's nice and melty and really flavorful, like a sharp cheddar or Gruyere, Gouda, smoked Gouda. I made a smoked Gouda mac and cheese the other day, which was fantastic. You can add veggies into it if you're trying to get your kids to eat kale, for example. Just saute up some kale, mix that in. Who's not going to eat kale if it's covered in cheese? Mike would. Yes, he would. You can put spinach in. You could open up a can of tomatoes. You could put ham, shrimp, scallops, all kinds of different stuff. So you can make it however you want to. You can also make it vegan by using vegan cheese. Use oil instead of butter. Use nut milk or coconut milk or soy milk for the dairy. It may not quite thicken up the same way, but it's still going to be delicious. And if that's what you're used to, that's fine. A word about pasta. We sell some pastas here. They're really nice. They're imported from Italy. And so we have, you want to choose something that's got holes in it or that's curly and has something where the cheesy sauce is going to really get in there and hold on. The pasta is going to hold on to that sauce because really the pasta is just a vehicle for the cheese. I mean, let's face it. It's true. So I use torchietti, which is curly and it's just curls up on itself. And so the cheese is going to get in there nicely. I boiled this a little while ago and I put just a tiny bit of oil on it so it wouldn't clump up. If you can avoid using oil, you want to avoid it. So cook it right before you make your sauce or do it in two separate pans or whatever. I just wanted to have it ready so we don't have to wait for it. So I used a tiny bit of oil. The problem is the sauce doesn't really stick as well if you oil your pasta, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, trust me. So to start the sauce, what we're going to do is make a bechamel, which is oil or butter, some kind of fat mixed with flour. But because it's me, I am putting in also a little bit of onion and a little bit of garlic. Totally optional. You don't need to use that if you don't want to. A word about additions. If you are going to be using kale, for example, something that needs to be cooked, you want to add that in with your onions and garlic so that it's cooked, well cooked before you make the sauce out of it. You can also do, peas or corn, which you would add into the sauce with the cheese. You can roast garlic, of course. I'm always talking garlic. You can roast broccoli or cauliflower. You want to throw that in when you add the cheese in too. So anything, unless it really needs to be cooked, I would cook it separately, except for maybe kale. If you're going to do spinach, I usually use frozen spinach because it's already chopped up. But the world is your oyster here. You can use anything that really makes you happy mixed with cheese. And the more stuff you put in, if you put in ham or bacon and some veggie, you basically have dinner. You've got all you need. You've got some protein. You've got a lot of fat, which is okay occasionally. Veggies and stuff, or you can make a salad separately. You can do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do. So here I am melting my cheese, and I'm going to go ahead and put my onion in. Again, this is an optional ingredient. I'm going to wait on my garlic for just a minute. And I'm just making a plain one tonight. I am going to put some tomato on the top, and that's really more of a garnish than anything. But like I said, you can add canned tomato into this. I would probably cut the amount of milk just because you're adding more liquid, and we want that on that's like a medium heat or so. I just want to cook the onions a little bit, and now I'm going to add my garlic. And again, you don't want the onion and garlic to be overpowering. You want it to kind of just be in the background a little bit. Well, I don't. I want the garlic to be foremost because I love garlic. But you don't want it to overpower the flavor of the cheese. I am using, tonight I'm using raclette, which is a soft, sort of a semi-soft, either Swiss or French cheese. Ours is French. If you've heard of raclette before, you may have heard of the grill that you can do your meat and veg on, and then you melt the cheese underneath. It's a Swiss kind of deal, and they're awesome. They're really fun to use. It's kind of like having a fondue party, but it's called raclette, and the cheese is also called raclette. And then I also have some Gruyere, which is a delicious French or Swiss cheese as well. And it's a nice combination. I use raclette usually when I make fondue too. And this is sort of like, basically like fondue. So I have 1/3 cup of butter, and I'm adding the same amount of flour. And if you're using, so you can use any kind of dairy. I have a combination of 2% and half and half. Why didn't I just use whole milk? Because it made me feel better to use 2%. I don't know. I've made it with skim milk before too. If you're using a skim or a lower fat milk, you might want a little bit more roux. So the roux is the butter and flour, and it's a thickening agent. And you do want to cook it a little bit. You don't want to add your dairy immediately, or you'll get big clumps. And if you get big clumps, it's really hard to get rid of them once the dairy's added. So we're just I'm not gonna quite brown this. You can brown it, but it's gonna change the color of your sauce. So that's just flour, butter, and in this case, onions and garlic. And then I am going to add my dairy, but I'm going to add it very slowly. And I'm going to whisk it. Love these measuring cups from OXO. They're squeezy, they're silicone, and you can get a good grip on them. So I'm adding just a little bit at a time, and it does clump up. But then I add a little more, and it thins it out, and then a little more. But if you pour all of the milk all at once, it's just going to go, it's going to get into clumps that, like I said, will just never seem to disappear. And then once it's in it's nice and smooth there, I'm just going to add the rest of my milk. But you want to get a nice smooth consistency before you add all of your milk in there. Or like I said, you get those clumps of butter. Clumps of butter and flour, which are not terribly tasty. Okay. And this is I'm going to turn it up to high. This is going to cook for a couple minutes, and it's going to start thickening. It's not going to be super, super thick, because when I add the cheese in, that is going to really thicken it up. If you are using just cheddar or, Monterey Jack or something that's not super, super flavorful, well, cheddar is, but then you could add a little bit of mustard, either dry mustard or wet mustard. Just adds a little bit to the flavor of it. Or if you're doing ham and cheese, if you're doing Swiss with ham, a little mustard is nice, or even a little honey mustard might be nice. Not too much, don't overdo it. But there's just so many ways you can really customize your macaroni and cheese to be just, what you or what your family really likes. So I do want to just say a little hello to Jody, and thanks for watching tonight. Hope you're not working too hard. Thank you for indulging me, everybody. And hello to everybody. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of pepper and salt. If you are one of those people that does not like to see your pepper, you can use white pepper. I don't have any problem with it, so I'm just going to add black pepper. And this is kind of a medium grind, I would say. And a little bit of salt, not too much, because the cheese has enough of that kind of piquant flavor that I don't think you need a ton of salt in there. You can also always add more salt after, or people can add it at their plate once they get served. All right, it's starting to thicken a little bit, so I'm going to add, so that was 4 cups of dairy, and I am adding 6 cups of cheese. This is the Gruyere and the raclette. Gruyere is kind of nutty, great for fondues. Raclette, like I said, is great for fondues. So I started to grate my raclette, and it was just so soft that it just kept jamming up my food processor. So I just cut it into some smaller pieces. If you don't have a food processor and you don't want to take the time to grate it, you can just, with any cheese, you can just cut it into small pieces. It'll take a little bit longer to melt, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. So this is getting nice and melty and gooey. I do have some chunks in there. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Once your milk goes in, you definitely want to keep an eye on it. Don't let it boil, or you'll get kind of some scummy, boiled milky stuff. That sounds disgusting. It's not that disgusting, but just don't do it. So we're just going to let this melt, and I'm constantly stirring here because I want to keep an eye on the heat, and I also want to break up some of these bigger pieces. So once this is ready to go, I'm going to add my pasta in, which you'll see in just a sec, but you can serve it right from the stovetop. You don't have to bake it. I'm going to bake this one. I've always had baked mac and cheese, so that's what I do. But if you just want a super quick dinner, this has been like 10-12 minutes. The sauce is almost done. Pasta could cook while you're making this. Just throw together a salad and you've got dinner ready in 15-20 minutes. If you do want to bake it, you want to put it on about 350 for maybe half an hour or so until it's like bubbling. If you do it immediately, it won't take quite as long. I took mine on New Year's Day down to a friend's house, so it was on the cooler side by the time we put it in the oven. So it took I would say about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes to get nice and bubbly and get the panko browned on top. Oh, that looks good. There's still just a couple of little chunks in there, which I'm not going to worry too much about, because if you get a piece of cheese, is there really a problem with that? It smells good too. So raclette, I will warn you, is a very stinky cheese. It smells like dirty feet. But don't be put off by that, because it is delicious. In fact, my experience with any kind of stinky cheese is that it is delicious to eat. You just have to not worry too much about the smell. So you can see that's really pretty smooth. So I'm going to take my pasta that I cooked earlier, and I'm just going to put it right in here. This is a pound of pasta, which is how most boxes of elbows and stuff are usually in a 1 pound. And I'm just going to turn the heat right off. Usually in 1 pound packages. Our pasta is 1 pound packages. So that is all nicely stirred together. So like I said, scoop this into bowls and serve it as is, or put it into a nice big casserole, like so. Whoop. If your casserole's not big enough, put it into some smaller containers. You can freeze it and then just take it out to bake when you need it. So if you make a big batch, you could always freeze it in smaller containers, like in stasher bags. All right, and I am going to put some tomato on top. Again, this is really just for It's what?
Hot on the bottom.
Hot on the bottom. So these are just for garnish. Sorry, sometimes we have conversations while we're filming. And this is definitely just if you want to. I don't use the ends, but you can put those into a salad. But it just adds a little something, a little je ne sais quoi to your mac and cheese. I've also done crumbled bacon on top, or fresh parsley or herbs, or just serve it as is. There's nothing wrong with the way it looks, just the way it is. And then with the ends of the tomatoes here that I'm not using, throw them in a salad or toss them with some vinegar or something, and they'll be delicious. And then, I guess I'll cut one more. And then we're going to just put some panko, or you can use any kind of breadcrumbs on top. I was talking to Wendell at WCLZ, and he asked about making gluten-free mac and cheese. And I don't think that would be a problem. You just use gluten-free pasta, and then just forego the breadcrumbs, or use gluten-free breadcrumbs. So again, you can make this vegan, you can make it vegetarian, you can put meat in it, you can do really anything you want. Use whatever kind of cheese you have. If you have a bunch of cheese ends from a charcuterie board, mix them all together. Something like goat cheese, I probably would not mix into the sauce because it would lose its kind of goaty flavor. But, you could plop it on top of it. Feta would be good. Just make sure you balance whatever kind of other cheese you're mixing it with. I wouldn't use all feta. That might be a little overboard. Really, any kind of melty cheese is great in it. Parmesan, some people like parm in theirs. So really the sky's the limit. And again, adding vegetables in either because you have them or you need to get your kids to eat more veg or you need to eat more veg. Great way, just throw it in there because it's all going to be covered with cheese. So it's going to be delicious. If you want a glass of wine with your mac and cheese, we have a couple of recommendations here. This is a nice oaky Chardonnay from California. And then we have the Fendon, which I'm probably not saying right. And this is a Swiss wine, and it's not oaky. It's just really awesome. I mean, you think raclette is Swiss. This is Swiss. It's got to go well together, right? But those are both really nice bottles of wine. Not a ton of cleanup. This is going to go in the oven for about 30-40 minutes, and then we're going to have dinner, this and a salad, nice glass of wine, and we're going to be ready to roll. I would like to mention a very exciting thing that is happening, hopefully coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be rebuilding our kitchen, which means that when that's done, we will hopefully be back to scheduled wine tastings once a month and in-person classes. So we're super excited about that, and we'll keep you posted. The store will be open the whole time that we're doing the demo and the reconstruction, so don't be scared. Might be a little dusty, but we'll try to keep up with that. Next week, we're going to have Mike and Betsy, and we are making, help me out, Heather? Chicken and mushrooms, and that's going to be fantastic. And we may be doing it at their house if our demo has started. Otherwise, we'll do it here in our kitchen. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you again soon, and make some mac and cheese and enjoy it. And if you need cheese, we've got lots of options here at the store. Have a great night, everybody.